completely circumvented the public sphere, which is kind of like an atmosphere that filters all these harmful rays of, of desire, and what the commodified entertainment world has done, in which everything is structured around, stories that sell goods, that commodify everything, is that people's critical sensibility, has been completely, they may still, have PhDs in rhetoric, but they can't deal with the fact that their desires in their body have been activated in a way that motivates them to behave in what, in Plato's world would be based on the lowest possible motivations of the body, of desire, lust, greed, and so on. So that's the condition of the spectacle. Now the question is what to do about that. And the Florida Research Ensemble project is saying, well, okay, it's true that this is the problem, that literacy, if you look at electracy from the point of literacy, basically what you get is the matrix. Which is, if you've seen the film The Matrix, okay, it's, the representatives of the digital world are these monsters, unbelievably horrible monsters, and humans of the literate world are like in these little vats, and their, energy is sapped off, like, harvested in some way. It's this nightmarish vision. But what you have to understand is that most representations of electracy or the coming electrate world are told from the point of view of literacy. It's a very conservative point of view. So if you look at electracy from a little different point of view, you see that it could be possible. So the way the FRE looked at the Society of the Spectacles, we said, well, it's true that the civic sphere, or the literate civic sphere, has been destroyed, or is being destroyed, but it has to be the case that, that electracy can support the intelligence of a community. That it might not be the same community, that the people in that community might decide to behave differently than they did under literacy, just as literate people decide to behave differently than they did under orality. That as science rose out of and then went against religion. Oral civilizations are totally religious. So they may change their mind about what they want to do, but they can act in their own best interest. This has to be the case. And the name of the way in which a collectivity, decides what's in its own best interest and then acts is monumentality. That this is the way the public decides its values and decides how it wants to behave. So our bet is that, but then the methodology is that we have to invent. Someone has to invent, just as Plato did, Aristotle, and so forth. The classical Greeks invented literacy. It didn't just happen. It didn't like they went by the river and found literacy, or like God gave it to them. Here's literacy. No, they invented it, over a long period of time, and developed science and so forth, and that worked in our own best interest. So the FRE project says, okay, let's invent electracy. Somebody's got to invent it. It might as well be us, or we'll participate. And we'll develop a way in which we can use digital media, the spectacle, but we have to design a practice that makes the spectacle intelligent, just like we want to design a tourism, Solonism, the theoria, that made tourism intelligent, made tourism a way, not just a vacation, but a way to actually participate in the formation of the public sphere. So that's where the maestry comes in. The maestry took me a long time to get there. But the maestry, okay, is the way to do this. I mean, it's a way to form a cognitive map. A maestry is a cognitive map. A maestry shows you the individual person who makes it, shows that person the connection between their individual, particular, private, unique, idiosyncratic existence and the collective sphere. The whole ongoing, imperceptible, unintelligible collective life. It maps that relationship. How does it do this? Do we have time? You got tape time to? Because I'll just keep going. If
seems fine.
Okay, good. Okay, so how does the maestry map? And the maestry is fundamentally allegorical in its structure. Now, the medieval world was probably the last time that the Western world had a worldview that really helped, that really was a complete cognitive map, an uninterrupted, a continuous cognitive map. And just to remind you about how the allegoric structure works, you know, starting with the literal level, and the most famous, I mean, Dante, you know, is probably the last work that's really structured this way. But I mean, the allegory has had a certain life. But the way the allegorical structure works is in this larger, you know, formal sense is this 4 levels. It's got 4 levels. And the basic level is called the literal level. This is the level of history as we would look at it now. But for the medieval allegory, this history was the history told in the Old Testament. It was the history of Israel coming out of Egypt and you know, being saved from enslavement. Then what's called the allegorical level is the New Testament story, which is the life of Christ. And you remember that what the Christians did was read the Old Testament allegorically. So every incident in the Old Testament is matched up with the New Testament, the life of Christ. So it's a coordination between the historical life of people of Israel with the individual life of Christ. The third level is called the moral level. The moral level is the story of the individual believer, and so then again it coordinates the you know, the birth and death, the life of that individual believer, because of course Christ's story is a story of the possibility of salvation, you know, for all people, not just the Jews, the Israelites. Then the moral level, the story of the individual believer in his or her own personal life, at whatever point